kind of moving on to the wide receiver position, and I'll skip over offensive line, and then we can kind of talk through that together, as you had mentioned. So, um, from a wide receiver position, Jalil Farooq is a guy that uh, that I'm very interested in. He's a guy that I think a lot of people think that could make the next step. Had a very good Alamo Bowl game against Oregon. Probably was Oklahoma's leading receiver in that game overall. Didn't really get a lot of opportunities, really early on in the season, and so I think it was kind of interesting with Farouk Mark. A lot of people assumed because he was very, very close to Caleb Williams. A lot of people assumed that he would kind of just follow Caleb Williams wherever he decided to go. And so having him here and stay here, I think speaks a lot to how much he loves the culture, how much he loves the new coaching staff, and I think the opportunity that he has, with a couple of the receivers that have left. Mario Williams, Jaden Hazelwood has an opportunity to kind of assert himself, as one of the top wide receivers. And then Theo Weiss is another guy coming off injury last year, and then really just didn't get a lot of opportunity because of those injuries. Just to see how he was injured a little bit in the spring, came back, got injured a little bit more so early on in fall camp. So how he recovers from that, because I think Oklahoma will probably look to have some sort of combination of Jalil Farooq, Marvin Mims. And then you've got certainly Theo Weiss and Drake Stoops in that mix from a wide receiver perspective. So we talked a little bit about Marcus Major in terms of that kind of that three-way battle there with in the running back room. One guy I neglected to mention at the wide receiver was Cody Jackson. Cody Jackson's a guy that played a little bit more in the Alamo Bowl. Didn't have a ton of run throughout the balance of the season, but could be a guy that could be in the mix in that top 5, top 6 wide receiver rotation. And I think Mark, probably the area that has the most turnover and really doesn't have as much returning talent is kind of at the H back tight end position. So in Levy's offense, he does not have there is no H back, so it's everybody's really a tight end. So you've got three guys I think that I'm really interested in looking at. You've got Daniel Parker, who is a transfer in from Missouri. Didn't have a large volume from a catch perspective, but I think it'll be very interesting, not only starting here in the spring, but going through the fall and then the season of how Oklahoma packages him, because I think he's probably the best blocking tight end, fullback, whatever you want to put him call them in that mold. But probably not as good as a pass catcher. And then you've got two true freshmen that's coming in. They kind of remind you, Mark, of a lot of the kids that Iowa State has recruited over the years. 6'4", 6'5", big body tight ends that Oklahoma will have, because Oklahoma obviously has lost a couple. Jeremiah Hall has moved on, and then they've had a couple of kids moved on. So true freshmen Caden Helms and Jason Llewellyn are kids that will fight to have an opportunity to have a little bit of to say in terms of who gets some play there at the tight end position, because you've got Braden Willis that has returning. He's really kind of the incumbent starter there, but then you've got those guys that will probably be asked to provide at the very least a little bit of depth there. And which one of those kids steps up, if one or both of them step up to provide a little bit more depth to that position, would be interesting. And so those are the guys that I have, minus the offensive line. We can kind of get into that as well.